This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick. Looks like we have a guest.
Cheers. So, between the last recording and now, a certain Kelsey Namespeaker showed up at my door. And with no preparation, I told her she needed to sit down and help us with the second half of this chapter. And she brought whiskey, so excuse my...
Usqua is my payment to be a guest.
Payment is welcome. But yeah, I guess we got to the part in the last chapter where the girls had traveled downriver and sort of told that story. And then we're going to go back and tell the same 5 days from the night perspective.
From the dream. Okay, I'll jump in here. It was not as if Nerys had much choice. He could hardly appeal to the authorities in Boannda, and if he did not like the fares she offered, well, he had to sail downriver anyway, so River Serpent cast off again, heading for Ibu Dar, with one stop to be made that he was not informed of, until Boannda began falling astern. "Saladar," he growled, staring over Nynaeve's head. "Saladar's been abandoned since the White Cloak War. It would take a fool woman to want to be ashore at Saladar." Even smiling, Nynaeve was angry enough to embrace the source. Nerys roared, slapping at his neck and his hip at the same time. "The horseflies are very bad this time of year," she said sympathetically. Brigida roared with laughter before they were halfway down the deck. Standing in the bows, Nynaeve inhaled deeply as Elaine channeled to bring the wind up again, and River Serpent lumbered into the strong current flowing out of the Bourne. She was all but eating red fennel for meals, but even if she ran out before Saladar, she would not care. Their journey was almost over. Everything she had been through was worth it for that. Of course, she had not always thought so, and Elaine and Brigida's rasping tongues had not been the only cause. I think I'll hold it there, because then we start with the first night, lying on the captain's bed in her shift while yawning. Elaine occupied the chair, and Brigida leaned against the door with her head brushing beams. Nynaeve puts on the ring.
So that was a little bit of a summary of what had been kind of going on. And then, like I said, there's this weird flashback where Jordan kind of tells the story out of order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that had meant the first night of the second leg of the journey.
You thought it was another 5 days.
Yeah.
But no, it's... And what's interesting is we talk so much about the relationship, but it's not just evolving during the day, it's also evolving at night.
It is an odd way to do it. Nynaeve puts on the ring that first night.
Yeah, and I see this as... This moment is one that's so easy to gloss over, but for me is hugely indicative. Indicative?
Indicative,
thank you.
That's right.
Not indicative.
Nailed it.
Illumin.
Illumin, thank you.
Sorry, Pat.
But we really see that post-traumatic. She is terrified. She is having trouble, walking back into the situation where her life was threatened.
Yeah, she's still in shock. Very much in shock.
Very much in shock.
This is her trigger, for sure.
And she's forcing herself to walk back in, and of course, has an emotional reaction and immediately thinks of herself as a coward, which is not at all.
And that's, very similar to what a lot of women do when they're in shock or get triggered by something. It's like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. Oh, I should get over this. Oh, I should feel better about this. I should be done this feeling already. Why aren't I over this feeling already? It's just very common feeling among women, I find, unfortunately.
I've been trying to call a lot of attention to it over the last few Nynaeve chapters because I really felt that this mounting, she's under this constant haze of fear, not to mention being assaulted by various people, like once a freaking week. Like, people are trying to kill her, jumping out of bushes. It's not too terribly surprising that, well, she cracks a bit in this moment. But it's almost amazing that she hasn't yet, and that she's just irritable, more so than usual. Seems to be kind of the only symptom.
Yeah,
until now.
And kind of like along with what Aradia is saying, Nynaeve going through her shock and going through her trauma, but also trying to force it down, is very relatable to a lot of women. And RJ doesn't write it so it's obvious, because it's not obvious when you see it in other women around you, right? So we pick up on it more naturally than I think men will, but because of the way he writes it, we relate with it more as a character than maybe some guys do on their first read or second read, but...
Or 20th.
But the more that you read it and the more that other people point it out to you, the more relatable these sentences from her POV really are, which is really intriguing to me.
There's a lot of guilt in there that maybe shouldn't be. She's constantly whipping herself for not being perfect.
Yeah, she has a super high standard of herself.
Well, of everybody.
Of everybody, for sure, but herself, she projects her own standards on herself onto others. So, like, her own perfectness of herself projecting onto everybody else is also going to be reflected back at her when she doesn't see it in others. So, it's just this constant cycle of self-deprecation, in a way, if that makes sense.
She says, I'm so tired of being afraid. So tired of being a coward, which she, again, you guys kind of, I'm reiterating this, but she's equating the two things, which is not true or real.
No, she can be. She is definitely afraid, but in no way is she a coward. The person who's gone up against Moghedien twice, who didn't run away in order to save Brigitte, like...
Yeah.
She's gone up, she's chased down the Black Ajah. Like, we can list the things that Nynaeve does, that even though she's terrified, the fact that she does them anyway makes her the exact opposite of a coward. It makes her a hero. It makes her brave.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think Nynaeve is so easy to identify with is because she is just constantly terrified but does the right thing anyway. And that's something that, like, we get to see that terror in her head and yet see her do the right thing. Whereas Moghedien, we see her terror and see her always be self-preserving.
Yeah, she's a very contained person.
Not really brave.
No.
Not what I would describe as brave.
They're both terrified. Moghedien and Nynaeve have a similar level of fear, and yet vastly different responses.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated Brigitte's response to Nynaeve's, I hesitate to call it an outburst because it's only 2 sentences, but, you know, she's suddenly returns from Teleran Riyadh and she's crying a little, I think, and says, I'm so tired of being afraid, I'm so tired of being a coward. And Brigitte says, if I thought Moghedien was hunting me, Brigitte said finally, I would run. If there was no other place to hide than a badger's hole, I would wriggle in and curl into a ball and sweat until she was gone. I would not stand in front of one of Sarandon's shredded if it charged either. Neither's cowardice. You must choose your own time and your own ground, and come at her in the way she least expects. I will take my revenge on her if I ever can, but that is the only way I will. Anything else would be foolish. I just really liked that.
Yeah, and I like that the next statement is that was hardly what Nynaeve wanted to hear, but it's what she needed to hear, right? What you want, what you need to hear are very different things. So I think Brigitte admitting, and very easily admitting to her fears and her feelings about the situation helps Nynaeve maybe subconsciously also accept that.
I mean, if you hear the horn can have fears.
Right? Someone who's lived thousands upon thousands of times over.
Maybe demonstrate a little better that fear is not necessarily a bad thing. We need it. And, you know, if you're standing on a sidewalk and a car jumps up over the curb and starts barreling towards you, you jump out of the way because you're afraid. That doesn't mean you're a coward.
No.
That's just what you do. If fear served you in this sense, you should get out of the way. What are you going to do, box it?
I was recently watching Lock and Key, and I don't know if anyone else has seen that, but that's an excellent show, which I highly recommend for some binging. But in it, one of the girls takes fear out of her head, and that leads to some bad decisions.
Yeah.
You need fear.
Yeah.
Nodding.
It's definitely an interesting concept to see on the screen, for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. No, Lock and Key is, while not a perfect show, has some really interesting fantasy concepts in it and addresses them very well.
Yeah, it was a weird mix of dark, morbid gore sometimes and dark humor and dark tropes mixed with a little bit of kiddish, campy, childish TV. It was a very strange mixture to watch. Are you knocking stuff over, Travis?
Travis in the background making noise. Hitting the door thingy. And you know what? I've got Timber, he makes noise. You've got Travis, he makes noise.
It all equals out.
It's fine.
Just creeping back here.
So Elaine's solution here is that she'll go face the danger with Nynaeve, which Nynaeve is also not fond of. But they go back.
And by the way, preview, I have another is channeling real debate coming up.
Dun dun dun.
So they're in Teleran Riyadh, they go back together, Nynaeve needs someone to hold her hand. She needs someone to help her through the panic that she's experiencing. You know, she was extremely brave. She counted to 1,000. She was panicking. No one was around her. She felt people watching her in the columns. As we've established, there probably usually is somebody watching you from the columns.
Almost definitely. Someone's there.
So she counted to 1,000 and then got the hell out. And now she's going back with Elaine. The only thing I really had to say is the stone plinth in the green.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if she realizes the names are in memoriam.
It doesn't seem so. At least it's not stated that way. Someone was building a very big house just outside the village, presumably Perrin's house. Stone plinth 5 paces high had been erected on the green, carved all over with names. A good many she recognized. That's it. They were mostly Two Rivers names.
I have to assume those are all the people who died in the Trolloc attacks.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. This is their...
You're basically talking about the Vietnam Memorial Wall.
Yeah, it's that, just smaller. Nynaeve looks at this stuff and she has no idea what's going on. She doesn't know what the banners mean. She doesn't understand why there's a plinth. Who would build a house like that? It's ostentatious. I get the sense that she feels. I'm probably just projecting.
I mean, sure, ostentatious for Two Rivers, but, you know, we know how it's a 3-story house. That's like, oh my god,
yeah, it's not really mind-blowing or anything.
It's crazy.
We flash to the White Tower. We see that there's less chairs in front of Elaita's desk.
Which, to me, is just an update on her consolidating her power. The fewer chairs, the fewer people she actually has to pay attention to, the fewer people who are basically taking her in hand.
Right. And we know how Elaita acts. They're just kind of, just going to keep cutting people off.
Totally. And the triptych is gone. That, to me, was interesting because it signals a change in Elaita's goals and perspective. Because Bodwin failed badly, and she wanted to remind herself of that, and now it's gone.
Yeah, she's exhumed any red failures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That before it was don't fuck up like that, now it's like Reds don't fuck up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to... Yeah, I'm glad you said it that way, Kelsey. She's erasing the idea that it's possible for her to fail.
Yeah.
Which I think she's stressed about all the time, and this is so much like Bonwyn's screw up or Bonewyn, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Bodwin is Matt's sister, Bonwyn is the Amerlin. Jordan, get more differentiated names. Come on.
Can't you be original?
Bonwyn failed by mishandling Arthur Hawkwing and turning him against the tower, and we all know how that went. Elaita is about to fail by mishandling Rand al'Thor and turning him, well, he's already kind of against the tower, but this certainly doesn't help.
And both of them have dark friends whispering in their ears. Well, I don't know if Bodwin, but at least Hawkwing certainly did.
Yeah, and Elaita later has... Does she have Ordeith yet? Is he there?
Well, yeah, Ordeith has come and gone, but she also has her keeper, who's whispering in her ear, telling her lies.
Yeah.
And is literally the Black Oddjaw controlling a lot of what's going on.
When's the last time that we saw Elaita?
I think prologue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there may have been one or two other... And we've seen a lot of what's going on through Teleron Riyadh, what's going on, but...
Yeah, but her actual, a scene with her, and it was at the beginning, right, with the rest of the
I think
sitters.
so.
It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the ladies rifle through Elaita's desk to see what they can glean from the rapidly disappearing notes.
Which is everybody come back to the tower, which of course they're not, because they're forming a rebel alliance.
Rand recrossed the Dragon Wall into Cairhien. Nothing out of Tarabon still.
Pedro Nile calling White Cloaks back to Amadisia. That one I'm not sure about. I think we talked about this briefly. We said Galad had orders to go to Saladar, and then he was recalled. Why was he recalled? Why is Pedro Nile pulling the White Cloaks back into Amadisia?
Is in Lord of Chaos, isn't Nile... That's when Nile's lion plan, as I like to call it, he tries to hatch the lion plan where he's going to...
Oh, I think it's too late. I think Rand's gotten too big. This is way past the lion plan. Lion plan came and went. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, what's the next big thing the White Cloaks do? But I think Niall dies before anything
He
big
dies,
happens.
yeah, that's the thing is, I'm not really sure what his next plan was, because he gets assassinated.
Super Sky thinks that they're trying to get them back in position to hit Saladar, but why would he pull Galad and all of those troops with him away to then send them all back?
He's got more gaze. He's
At this point?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about that, but I thought it was too soon.
He's heading into Andor.
Right, and he's got leverage.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got the queen.
Right.
And he's got Galad to control the queen.
He's going to need Galad.
Right.
So basically, the Lion plan has come and gone.
Right.
Rand got too powerful. He was like, that's not going to work anymore.
Right.
But I've got the Queen of Andor.
They use and abuse Galad, but that obviously goes south.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then Davram Bashir has disappeared because he is hunting down Mazrim Taim, which is also why Elida doesn't want anyone to mention Mazrim Taim, because she doesn't want anyone to know that he has escaped.
Escaped her.
Mm-hmm.
And also why she's obsessively trying to find him, because if she finds him, she can kind of slow down this news or interrupt what he's doing or whatever. Or find Tame, perhaps.
Yeah, she's desperately trying to cover up her failures.
This is also, I feel like I should point out, Davram Bashir doing this is essentially saying, well, since the White Tower is inept, I guess we'll step in and do their job for them. That's what's happening here. It makes Elida look awful, if you're to think about it. That this isn't Davram Bashir's job, but someone's got to do it.
And the White Tower has already let him escape once, so... Which, we do think Demandred is the one who broke him out. I do, certainly.
It's like if there was a string of robberies in your local city and the police were bungling it so badly that a bunch of people get together and form a posse and start hunting them down. That's it. It's not supposed to happen, It's what the cops are for, so people don't do that stuff.
Well, and very shortly, Davram Bashir is going to end up allied with Rand, which is exactly the opposite of what Elida wants.
Not into that.
He, in some ways, rebels against Queen Tenobia, because he sends back to her and is like, hey, aren't you going to help out Rand? We should ally with him. And she has the whole prophecy thing she's got to fulfill. So she can't ally with Rand until they confront him and slap him a couple of times. But meanwhile, Bashir is basically gone rogue and being like committed all her troops to him. So it's an interesting dynamic, which is all based around prophecy. Borderlanders are weird, man.
There's a Linny saying at the end of this, because Elaine is here, that I did not understand this one at all. After, why had Queen Tenobia of Saldea and King Izar of Shinar both written letters politely but stiffly resenting White Tower meddling in their affairs? It all made Elaine murmur one of Linny's sayings. To know two, you must first know one.
The idea is they're getting all of these conversations from Elida's notes, but they don't understand. They're getting, like, the third response to a first letter. It's like getting the last email in an email chain. You have no fucking clue what they were talking about when someone... like, you really have to go back and read the original email in order to have some idea of what's actually going on. They have no context, as Painted Dead says. And so, in order to understand part 2, you have to understand part 1. You have to have context. So they're getting all these letters, and they're like, we know this is significant, we just have no fucking clue why. As one British author said, 42.
Womp womp.
It's hugely significant. You just don't know why.
Yeah.
You don't know the question. So yeah, they're getting the answers. They just don't know the questions.
I appreciated at last year's Jordan Con that a bunch of panelists used it to stall for time when someone asked them a hard question.
So that's the first night, and then I had them going back a couple of nights, night after night, waiting for Egwene to show up.
Right.
And obviously there's a lot going on her end. We are sort of going back a couple of days. This is all taking place while Rand is fighting the Battle of Cairhien. There's a lot of channeling going on. She's exhausted. I'm not exactly sure what Egwene's doing, but not in Teleron Riyadh, that's for sure.
Amis and Egwene do show up in a bit. Presumably, the battle was just won. The battle for Cairhien. I'm not sure how long it's been.
They try and figure out how Egwene talked to them in their dreams, but we know that's a thing of just dreamers, so they can't ape it with the ring.
Do we know why Elaine was looking foggy to Nynaeve earlier?
She's using a different terangrial.
Okay.
She's using the amber disc with the figure of a woman in it.
Right.
And she has to channel into it.
Right.
And so this is where the debate comes up. Because, and I'm not entirely sure this was ever resolved, when both Nynaeve and Elaine are using the amber figure and are channeling spirit into it, in the dream, they have to actively be channeling spirit into the dream version of the Terangrial. And they have trouble channeling anything else.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at, that. And we see that in a bit here when Egwene and Amis shows up, and Amis explains a little bit. She gives us some clues, although she doesn't even know what's going on. And that's at the end of their conversation.
So, I mean, to me, what this says is channeling... It confirms to me that channeling is independent of the dream world. That when you're channeling in the real world, that channeling spirit actually does make it harder to channel in Teleron Riyadh.
Yeah, because the more grounded you are in the real world, the less grounded you're going to be in
exactly
Teleron Riyadh.
Oh, great way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amis says that in a few pages. I was going to read this because her insight is interesting. After she says, "I want to know how it happens that you are both here," Amis said. She listened to their explanation, and turned the plaque over in her hand once Nynaeve fished it out. Having the Terangrial touched by someone else while she was using it made Nynaeve's skin crawl. "I believe you are less here than Elaine," the Wise One said finally. "When a dreamwalker enters the world of dreams in her sleep, only a tiny bit of her remains with her body, just enough to keep her body alive. If she puts herself into a shallow sleep, where she can be here and also speak to those around her in the waking world, she looks as you do to one who is here fully. Perhaps it is the same. I do not know that I like it. Any woman who can channel being able to enter Teleran Riyadh, even in this state," she returned the Terangrial to Nynaeve.
Which is interesting because the other Terangrial lets anybody, whether you can channel or not, enter. Why is she worried about like a Terangrial that'll let channelers enter when there's this other one that's even more dangerous?
Oh, well, she doesn't like anyone being, she doesn't like Nynaeve using the other stone ring either.
Fair enough. I just thought it was weird that she was like particularly upset about this one that lets anyone who can channel in when there's this other I guess it's just one.
Yeah, I don't think she's really singling it out. She just says, "I do not know that I like it." Any woman who can channel being able to enter Teleron Riyadh, even in this state. Which I thought seemed to imply that you can do less in the world of dreams when you use this thing, but it's also harder to injure you. You're less there.
It's a lot like being in the world of dreams when you're awake. We see Egwene do that later when she's like riding a horse and she appears misty. Yeah, it's like being partially there.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good tool, like was mentioned earlier, for teaching beginner channelers to do it, to use it and access Teleron Riyadh. It kind of has a natural buffer already in it, so you can't kind of like channeling. You can get burned out if you go into Tar too soon, too early. If you're too much of a newbie, bad things can happen to you. So maybe that's also like a default of it.
Right, and the second you stop channeling, you drop right out.
You're done.
Yeah.
So it's a good training mechanism.
It's a bit of a safety switch. Sort of like when you're running on a treadmill and they have that little magnetic key, and like when you fall on your ass and it sends you shooting backwards, that stops the treadmill. That's basically, yeah. So when you fall on your ass in Teleron Riyadh, it jerks you right out of it.
That could be a fun headcanon-y theory, Kelsey, just that like these could be have been used as a learning tool.
I mean, it makes sense. Super Sky had mentioned it earlier.
No, it's canon, yeah.
Yeah. Trav had a good question.
That the Amber Terangrial is a learning tool? It was intended to be like for people who are learning how to...
So when you're channeling into... Trav just asked a question about would an outside channeler not sense the sleeping party that's channeling into the device or into the Angriel? Wouldn't you be basically a sleeping beacon for anyone to come find you if you were using it?
I'm assuming it's a fairly low amount of power, so the amount of power matters. And if you're channeling a trickle, they do describe it as a trickle. You're probably talking 6-foot radius.
That's fair. Your glow would be very, very tiny.
Is Nynaeve holding it and channeling into it in Teleran Riyadh? Or is she just holding it?
I think in Teleran Riyadh, she also has to channel into it. Because there's that moment when she loses the power and she drops right out of Teleran Riyadh.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to make that mean something, but everything in Teleran Riyadh could be an illusion. So I guess what I was originally thinking is, okay, so does that mean channeling in Teleran Riyadh is real channeling because she's holding a Terangrial and powering it, and when she stops powering it, it stops working? But that could easily have happened on the other side, and she just thinks she's holding it in Teleran Riyadh, unless it must happen that way, in which case that would make the power more real seeming to me in the dream.
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah. Does anyone want to yell at us about this one? I'm not really sure where to.
It's a debate we've started, and more, the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, channeling and Teleron Riyadh are very different, and in no way can you channel in Teleron Riyadh if you can't channel in the real world. It's one of the independent constants of the universe, the way Varen describes them. There's the Creator, the Dark One, and Teleron Riyadh. And the Creator lets you channel, and that's why it's different, because channeling is channeling the Creator.
I'm nodding. Man, I really wanted it to all be an illusion. I was hard on that side in the beginning.
You can probably say your questions out loud if you want.
I could, but it's been so long since I've read the books, I don't want to say anything dumb.
That's fair.
That's what editing is for. I say dumb shit all the time and edit it right out.
I see why you guys paused for so long reading the Discord screen and then, like, continuing your argument. Like, I get it. So it's so intriguing, like, watching everybody's input and opinions and thoughts. It's like, oh, yeah. And then you have to think about it for a bit and then come up with your own rebuttal. Yeah, get it.
And also, like, hey, you want to summarize what's on the screen because you're rebutting. You want to be like,
Yeah.
so-and-so says blah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, oftentimes there's the silence where I have to read it, summarize it, respond to it, and then put all that in
Somehow
the
move
podcast.
forward.
Yeah. While talking to Patrick, while reading the book, there's a reason I have 4 screens here. Yeah, Aradia. I don't think Aradia will.
Oh, I was going to say a second ago, or ask the open question: is there any instance that anyone can think of where someone channels true power in Teleron Riyadh?
Oh, I think that's all that Ishmael... God damn it.
Ishi.
That's all that Ishi does. He exists in the dream world, and whenever you see Sa or flames... Okay, so, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I think that the reason you see flames in his eyes is when he's in Teleron Riyadh, and you see Sa when he's in the real world.
Interesting.
Oh, good one. But yeah, that makes sense.
So he's constantly
Channeling.
kind of in both and channeling?
The true power. Yeah, I think because most of the first 3 books, you never see him in the real world. Mm-hmm. You only ever see him in a dream shard. Mm-hmm. Or in a dream.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm asking is because with this new small revelation, I'm kind of thinking that perhaps channeling is channeling in the real world and in Teleron Riyadh, and it works the same. It works in both places. But for instance, Perrin can stop the weave because best way to say it is Perrin is perhaps more powerful, but only in that place. A dreamer can't dream in the real world, only in the dream. A channeler can channel in either one.
Nodding.
This is kind of why I asked about the true power, because that would make sense. The two deities' essences, essentially, can be used anywhere.
And like we say, there's 3 constants, and some people can control the true power, some people can control the one power, and some people like Perrin can control Teleron Riyadh. Mm-hmm. And some people like Rand can treat the real world like Teleron Riyadh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that.
So they get away from the wise ones and end up back in the study for the post-meeting meeting.
Egwene uses the same trick again where she says, if only we could be back in Shuriam's study, lounging and relaxing like the good old days. You know, we can't have that now, and that's the kind of cue. I'll meet you in Shuriam's study.
By the way, the whole question, are you still with Master Luca's menagerie, feels very, very careless to me. Because the whole point is to not mention Master Luca's menagerie in Teleron Riyadh so Moghedien can't hear you.
Did she miss that memo?
She just blows their cover right there in front of, like, what if Moghedien was watching? She would know exactly where they are. I mean, she already does, but let's ignore that fact. Let's pretend that, like, this dude, Egwene, come on. Get your shit together. Do not, like... And she calls them out for nearly letting her secret slip. Like, come on. Dude, you could have killed them with that.
Yeah, it seems like she's purposefully trying to be super drastic and dramatic there to stop Nin from... But why would, of all things you could have used, why would you throw that into the world? You know, like, there's drastic and then there's just being careless.
That to me feels very careless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nynaeve says, what I want to know, she's about to ask a question. Egwene cuts her off. Whatever she thinks Nynaeve is about to ask, she does not want her to ask.
No, and Nynaeve does admit that she almost let it slip, because Egwene did ask her not to mention What Nynaeve was about to ask is, what I want to know is, how did you contact us in our dreams?
That's it. Yeah.
Egwene does not want the Wise Ones to know that she contacted them in their dreams, so she cuts her off and lets this secret slip. It's careless, and it's selfish, and it's because she's lying, and she shouldn't be. And later we see her beaten for that. Basically, very shortly, she has to give in to her toe.
Selfish child is right. She is only, 18 or 18 still, right?
Yeah, 18, 19, I think.
Really
I think she's turned 19 now. Now that we're a year and a half out. Elaine helped represent Samara as a Galad and Massima's fault, which it was. I thought that was a clever... She's like, well, it was totally their fault. I had nothing to do with sending 2 madmen at the same target. Nope, not my fault at all. Just the 2 madmen's fault.
Yeah, there were some cute things much earlier in this conversation. Matt killed Couladin? That part.
Matt? Which, of course, just shows you how much he's changed and the battle...
Yeah, scoops his jaw off the floor. Like,
totally.
What?
We saw Egwene tell Nynaeve and Elaine all these things in a previous meeting, but the Wise Ones weren't there. So she's restating them so that if something slips, the Wise Ones won't realize, hey, she already had this meeting. Like, she's doing so much to cover up the fact that she's been in Teleron Riyadh this whole time.
She's got a lot of shit going on right now.
Yeah.
Going to all these meetings that Moraine can't do, and doing all these meetings in Tar. Like, yeah, it's a lot.
Training.
Yeah.
Apprenticing.
Multitasker.
Overachiever.
Yeah. She's definitely that kid in class who always has her hand up answering the teacher's questions. Always. Front row.
Ambitious, I always say.
Cool your jet.
And here's where we get a description of Rand's day, and that you were talking about earlier, where Rand is spending a bunch of time training, both with the sword and hand-to-hand combat, and spending an hour with his craftsmen.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that part. We jumped around so much that I'm like 4 or 5 pages ahead about what you were talking about.
So we have covered this chapter in the least linear order, I think, of any chapter we've ever touched on. So the next, do you want to get out of the dream world? Because I feel like we've touched on everything that happens in the dream world until Nynaeve loses the power.
Where are you at?
It's just a couple of pages left. Nynaeve awakened with a jerk.
I like when Egwene calls them names.
Wheel of Time insights.
Brainless flap tongues become witless ninnies. That's all the pronunciation you could ask for.
All the what?
Pronunciation? Pronunciation.
So, can you pronounce that again?
Usquai?
Usquai.
You want some more whiskey?
No, but I'd love some Usquai.
Nothing to see here.
We're not drinking heavily over on this end of the podcast. Right? So Nynaeve woke up.
Onwards.
She's still blushing from her getting dressed down as she looks in the mirror after she wakes. You see Elaine say she stayed a little while longer in Teleron Riyadh because Nynaeve lost her connection. She was so frazzled that she stopped channeling. It's hard to be angry when you're embarrassed.
Or scared. Those are the 2 things where she tends to lose the power.
Yeah, I mean, the last time Egwene yelled at her was the whole assaulty situation with the monsters.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder Nynaeve has some issues with Tar. Like...
Jesus, between the...
Jesus, yeah.
Elaine assault, the Mogedian nearly destroying
almost
her
died.
twice.
Yeah, all the
and
traumatic
whole
stuff
Brigida
that she deals with happens or has happened there. The only shit that she can kind of control and feel confident about is in real life. So going somewhere where she has no control, obviously she's going to be a little bit messed up.
It's a good point, because Egwene, I feel like the bad shit happens to her in real life. She has ultimate control over the dream world.
Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
Nynaeve is the other way around.
Yeah, they have very, very opposite confidence, aspects.
To begin with, Nynaeve is not really a, go with the flow kind of gal, She's...
Yeah.
I think, even under normal circumstances, if everything was regular, I think this would stress her out. But these are not regular circumstances. Elaine discovered while she was still in Teleron Riyadh that Ch49 was arrested and reduced to accepted.
Well,
which is a whole thing. I'm not sure if you guys
she
want to get
wasn't
into.
actually arrested because she's in Saladar, but the warrant is out for her arrest.
Is it Ch49?
Oh, is that Ch49, not Oh, I made that mistake in another podcast, too.
Ch49 of the Yellow Aja. Elaida just decides she's weak one day.
just decides, yeah. And she's like she was one of her supporters. She set her up as an example. So I don't know. I don't have much left. They wake up. The end of this chapter is sort of anticlimactic. Most of the interesting stuff has already happened.
There's a lot of reflection in this chapter. When the Supergirls get together, they do a lot of updating each other, and a lot of that was important stuff, you know.
I mean, and the last thing I have is them being like, so how do you think it's going to go when we arrive in Saladar? And then being like, you know what? I bet we'll be greeted as heroes. It's like, have you not lived in this world your whole life? Any accomplishment you make is going to be automatically dismissed, swept under the rug, and like you're not going to be rewarded for it because it turns out we can't give accepted achievements in defeating the Black Ajah because we can't admit the Black Ajah exists.
Yeah. I love how much they talk themselves up, or she does, in her own head a little bit. Like, they crossed half the world, or near enough, and defeated the Black Ajah twice. Well, they had help in Tyr, but Chico had been all they're doing, you know? Like, she just, like...
Just dismissing Matt's help there.
Oh,
just
right?
Completely blowing.
Once again.
Yep.
Yeah. Just like, yeah, we kicked ass. We did so good. Oh, yeah, we're heroes. Yeah, we are.
They're just going to fall down and applaud.
Yeah.
And then everybody clapped.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a good moment I wanted to point out for everybody's, just for humor's sake, when Elaine complains, I did not even have a chance to send a message to Rand. Elaine got in after, and the lamp winked out. The small windows let in only dribbles of moonlight. And one to Avienda, if she's taking care of him for me, then she ought to take care of him. He isn't a horse, Elaine. You don't own him. I never said I did. How will you feel if Lan takes up with some Kyrianan woman? And then, I'll spare you reading the whole thing, but she's like, all those noble women, Terran as well as Kyrianan, he'd better not forget who he belonged to.
You don't belong him like a horse? Wait, yes I do.
It's all just such bullshit.
Like 10 seconds later.
That whole comparison is just crap. It's all trash. I'm sorry. Nynaeve and Lan had how many weeks together discussing and chatting and fireside meals and whatever, right? And Elaine and Rand frolicked in the castle for...
3 days.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Shut your mouth. You don't own anybody.
Little overzealous, but this is where it comes out where I like to bring up that Nynaeve is the eldest of them at like 24, and she's never been in any kind of relationship. You know what I mean? I feel like these are the kind of mistakes we make. Aradia says 26. That sounds more correct.
It's 26, yeah.
That I feel like a lot of young people make. Like, you know.
I never made any mistakes in relationships.
I was going to say...
No, me neither.
No.
Make out a little and you're like, well, that's it. I found the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life, and I'm only 16.
Guess you can't touch anybody else. We kissed once. Didn't talk about it or nothing. We didn't have any communication, but I own you, by the way.
Surely they understand.
You know?
No, there was communication. She wrote him 2 letters.
Oh, yeah. Those letters made so much sense. I forgot she spelled it out so clearly for him.
Uh-huh. I love you, you're wonderful, but if you betray me, I will touch you.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
Oh, I gotta find that face and post it.
No, that's definitely Elaine.
Yeah.
G, definitely.
I have seen people superimpose Lanfear's face on overly attached girlfriends. They even kind of look alike with the dark hair, you know?
Yeah, Lanfear definitely.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Think of the glory, Rand.
I might have to make that meme. Just think of the glory with her big eyes.
Yeah, totally.
A little bit too wide, little crazy wide eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one, Kelsey.
Think of the glory.
Think of the glory, Rand. You can see it.
Don't you want power? I'll help you get there,
Kind
Rand.
of the perfect caption, you know?
Come to the dark side, Rand.
After that, the ship anchors in the middle of nowhere, and they take the women to shore, and Tom was up near the trees, trying to amuse Marrigan's 2 boys by juggling colored balls produced from his sleeves. Gerald and Sev stared at him silently, hardly blinking, and held on to each other. Nynaeve had not really been surprised when Marrigan and Nicola asked to accompany her. Nicola might be watching Tom and laughing delightedly now, but she would have spent every moment at Nynaeve's side, had the latter allowed it. Arena wanting to come had been something of a shock, though. She was sitting off by herself on a fallen log, watching Brigida, who was stringing her bow. All 3 women might be in for a shock when they discovered what was in Saladar. At least Nicola would find her sanctuary, and Marigan might even have a chance to dispense herbs if there were not too many yellows about. Nynaeve, have you thought about how we're going to be received? Nynaeve looked at Elaine in astonishment. They had crossed half the world, or near enough, and defeated the Black Ajah twice. Well, they had help in Tyr, but Tanchico had been all their doing. They brought news of Elida and the tower. She was willing to bet no one in Saladar had, and most importantly, they could help these sisters make contact with Rand. Elaine, I won't say they will greet us as heroes, but it wouldn't surprise me if they kissed us before today is done. Rand alone would be worth that. 2 of the barefoot sailors leapt out to hold the rowboat against the current, and Julian and the Shinaran splashed ashore as the sailors scrambled back aboard. On River Serpent, men were already hauling in the anchor. Clear us a path, Uno, Nynaeve said. I mean to be there before dark. From the look of the forest, all vines and dusty undergrowth, 2 miles might take that long. If Nerys had not managed to gull her, that worried her more than anything else. Nynaeve is worried that the ship captain's like, oh yeah, those women I hate? Yeah, Saladar's right here. It's right there. Just walk off into the wilderness there. It's over there. Okay, later.
Just get off the ship. Take a walk.
Distinct possibility.
Take a long walk from shore here. Bye.
Goodbye now. Goodbye now. Bye. See ya. Goodbye.
I think he's too scared of him to do it, but yeah.
I can only imagine what he's saying in his own brain right now. Yeah. He can't say out loud.
Thank fuck God those women are off like a goddamn ship.
Yeah.
Get out. Get out.
When he's not using women. So we have 7 more chapters. But things accelerate pretty quickly from here on out.
And it's
No.
Burping. That's the other one.
7 more chapters, but 140 pages in my paperback. Those are long chapters. Or maybe just one of them is crazy
Jordan
long.
Lange.
Yeah.
Dude, what are you guys gonna do when you get to the last battle chapter? Is that gonna be
Have you thought about how
awesome?
you're gonna? I mean, it's what 8 books from now,
Yeah,
but
you're a ways away, but
I mean, I've thought about it. Do I have a solution? No.
fear of having the
We're just
endurance
gonna
of
have to
doing a
find natural
36-hour podcast.
yeah,
I mean, at
like
that
maybe
point,
point of view switches or something. Like
I mean, we're going to be so
Yeah.
close to the end of the podcast. It'll be so many years away. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to be going on then, but I mean, part of me is going to be like, hey, sponsor us and we'll do like a 9-hour recording session. And
Oh
do,
my
like,
God.
one thing or something
That would be
like
unreal.
just
We
all
have
the
talked
Red
about
Bull.
doing a marathon at some point.
But Patrick's like, fuck no. So maybe we'll split it in multiple parts and just do it over multiple days.
I mean, a marathon doing like noon to midnight would be sweet.
Yeah.
So then you're not up super early. But
I did have that thought. I was like, man, that's a fun idea, but that 9th hour, what the hell are we going to sound like? You know,
That's the fun part.
well, that's what everybody pays for. Is
Yeah.
that last hour.
They really
To laugh at
people
us? I mean,
wanna
I'm
know,
comfortable with
like,
that.
How fucking delusional can we get after 9 hours?
All
of
right,
talking?
next paragraph. Fuck.
And we'll be like, we'll be emotionally drained, and then we'll hit like, fucking Brigida dying and Noel coming back, and we'll just be like bawling in front of the
my
microphone.
Yeah. It'll need an intervention.
Yeah, I mean, if we had people we could shift out with, so we could take like a half an hour break while folks covered us for a chunk.
Oh man, imagine getting all the chosen in to like rotate through or something.
Or not even, just not me and Patrick, but just do like 9-10 people and just have them like rotate through the scenes.
Take like a point of view.
I
for
think
each person
that's
or
a wonderful
something.
idea.
Ooh, yeah.
And
13 hours, 13 chosen, 1 chapter.
Oh my goodness.
everyone who wants to could be involved in, like, you know, kind of the last hurrah. I don't think we're going to turn around and pick up Eye of the World immediately, at least. It's...
Well, no, because you guys have to cover the first season of the show by that point.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, at that point, who knows? Because, I mean, that's still like 4 years away.
show will
the
be
show
out.
hopefully will have
Yeah.
a couple of seasons out at that point.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys think you're going to try and cover the first season, like after the whole season comes out? Or even do the season at all?
It depends a lot on how they release it. Are they going to drop
That's fair.
one season at once? Are they going to release it episode by episode?
That's true.
I mean, yeah, we're going to talk about it. If they're dropping it episode by episode, we are not waiting until the last episode to review the whole thing. Mm-hmm. No, I mean...
Yeah. If they drop the whole season at once, I feel like we're just going to have to be like, we should just take a week off work and do one a day or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
if it all drops at once,
hammer them out.
I'm definitely hoping for episode by episode.
Yeah.
Me too.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Me too.
Like,
That's been the kind of the consensus around the board,
A
yeah.
whole season dropping at once kind of cheapens it.
it does.
Well, and it gives everybody a chance to process actually seeing their favorite fucking beloved series on screen.
Yeah.
And can actually compress what's been going on in front of their eyes. You know, like that's going to be huge for me. Actually trying to see and visualize while they're visualizing it for me. It's like, no, that little bit's different in my head than what I'm seeing
I
right
think
now,
that's
you know?
better for the fandom, too. Like, it gives everyone a week to freak out about what just happened and
Yeah,
speculate and about what's going to happen next.
I miss being super emotionally ramped up for like a week after every episode of Game of Thrones.
And also in sync with everybody else. Like, I want to be, like, on the same episode as everybody else and have a week to talk about that episode with everybody else. Like,
yeah, that's very true.
I see this happening right now with Picard. Like, one of my regulars at work, he comes in every Saturday morning, and so every week now we're like, dude, new episode. Like, what did you think? You know, It's fun. It creates a whole new aspect of
That's a whole social aspect of Wheel of Time that I think they need to have in there.
I think Rafe recognizes that, though.
I hope so.
From everything we've seen so far.
I just worry that Amazon doesn't do that in general. Generally, Amazon drops seasons. So this would be an exception for them.
Yeah.
Even though we all agree it's what's best for the series.
Yeah.
Picard may be online, but it's still NBC or whatever it is.
Yeah.
One
Well,
episode by episode.
let's write Sarah.
I mean, we've seen already what an impact doing those polls on Twitter has and regular commentary. Like, we've seen how much
We make a
fan
difference.
content and fan interaction makes. So,
Yeah.
wouldn't hurt.
All right, Sarah, Rafe, we've discussed this. Here's what you're going to do.
We as fans have made a decision.
The collective community.
Yeah.
Resistance is futile.
So here's what's going down.
Here is one of hundreds of emails you're going to get. Be prepared.
Signed by 300 of the most avid fans.
Patrick, are you going to come over here and drink in this bedroom with us or what?
I want to.
But. I hear a but.
Yeah,
Well-
but
Well,
What?
I
What?
have to get up early to open the bar. I got to be there 7-ish.
well, you stay here and you have a 5-minute walk to work.
Yeah.
there you go, dude.
Just don't go to sleep. And just
We got room.
ride
in
that
the
Red
van.
Bull train. Or come for a beverage and then go back home. Whatever.
I may. I'm on the fence.
That's fair.
Sweet. You should jump off the fence and come here.
Yeah. You should land on our side of the fence.
Yeah.
The grass is greener.
All right,
Just
all
gonna
right.
say. Just gonna say.
Let's stop the recording, though. I'm going to head up there.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?